Honestly, they're all horrible. You know, like I truly think,
How would you do in an actual sword fight?
oh gosh.
How often do you get asked that question? Right? Is that the first question somebody asks you when they find out you're a yeah.
Usually, yeah,
Yeah,
usually something like
okay.
that. Um, Sword fighting and fencing is very different. Probably pretty well, like probably better than the average person. um, but it's fencing is very different. Fencing is not like what you stereotypically imagine, like knight sword fighting, right? It's very different than that. But I would say probably better than the average human.
There's never been like a situation where there was maybe something going on and you've been like, let me use my fencing background to stop this fight or anything like that.
No, no, never. I stay out of those kinds of situations. But I will say fencing definitely like your reaction time, your hand-eye coordination is pretty elite. So I would imagine if I ever got into an altercation like that, I would be
You do
okay.
all right. Best sword fight scene in a movie?
Oh, yeah. Honestly, they're all horrible. You know, like I truly think that if you feature fencing in like a movie or a TV show, you need to work with actual fencers to be able to accurately reflect what fencing is like. Everything that you see in like the Parent Trap, or like I hear about the James Bond scene where they fence. Um, Recently, wasn't there the Netflix show with who was it? A Wednesday, the Addams Family. I think there was a fencing scene in it too. It's all so inaccurate. It's very frustrating. It's a little bit of a pain point in the fencing community because all they have to do is hire somebody for a couple of hours to show you how to like properly be in like fencing position and, and just kind of coach you through it. And it would be a lot more accurate than it's currently portrayed.
You may crush my feelings here, but how do you feel about the Princess Bride scene though, right? Like that's
It's
gotta
not too
that's
bad. It's not the worst one. There's much worse. It's really not that bad.
I've seen fencing on TV.
Hmm.
I know what's going on, but I don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, we hear that a lot from a lot of spectators. So yes, at its core, fencing, you're trying to hit the opponent in front of you. And where it starts to get a little bit tricky is there are three different weapons. So I fence foil. There's also epee and saber that have their own rules, their own targets of where you can actually hit and touches register. And then it gets even more complicated because there's something called right of way in fencing.
What do you like about it?
Um, I would say how cerebral it is of a sport. I would say that I love the physicality of it, how fast it is. But I also love being able to outthink my opponent. When you have that game plan and you're actually able to execute it, it's so gratifying because so many things can go wrong and it not actually work out in your favor. And so for you to be able to execute what you've been working on in practice or what your game plan was going into a specific bout feels really good. And it's kind of corny, but people call fencing physical chess because you're always trying to think a couple moves ahead from whatever your opponent is doing. And so I really like that cerebral aspect to the sport.
What would you say is kind of like your overall strategy for when you're like going in?
Yeah, I would say my personal style is very aggressive. I've always been a very aggressive physical fencer. I've definitely tried to develop other aspects of my game as well, and just use my strength and my height to my advantage, but also, just it's in fencing, you're always adjusting. That's something that um, I'm sure it happens in other sports, but you see on the international circuit a fencer who kind of has a breakthrough, who does really, really well at a competition. Everybody's immediately watching video on them, immediately seeing what kind of style they have, their tendencies, and they pick up on that and know what to do to counteract that. And I would say from that aspect, fencing is a very cerebral sport, right? You're constantly changing your strategy, your tactics. And so you have to be very flexible in fencing. You have to be able to adapt. And so everybody kind of has, I guess, their core style and things that they're good at, but they're always trying to adapt to their opponents and also to just everybody, you know, watching video on you and knowing what your tendencies are. So in that respect, fencing is really, really difficult, but also really fun because you always have to be creative and constantly changing.